Welcome to the Dirty North Archery Podcast with your hosts, Brandon and Caleb Hobbs,
where archery is in our DNA.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brandon, and got Caleb sitting here, and we're finally getting back around to recording another podcast. So hopefully we get a couple more done. So I guess today we're going to. We've got asked for questions in the past about tuning stuff. Any questions you guys want to hear on the podcast? So we're finally going to go through some of those. And answer those right now. So we're going to just kind of look back at our Facebook, our Instagram, and so this one's going to be a little bit of some bow setup and tech stuff. So
yeah, we're in the Palatial DNA Studios, and we have strings, a couple sets of strings stretching behind us right now. So we figured with building strings, and a couple of these questions are relevant. So we're just going to jump into it. First one's from Facebook a while back. And what was the guy's name?
This is from Trevor Wheeler, and Trevor is actually he's been following us for a little while. So Trevor, if you're listening, he's actually up in, where did he say? Canada, I think. Yeah, so. He's in BC.
Yep.
So he's been asking us questions back and forth a little while back about tuning stuff. So pretty cool. He said that the shop up there in BC just doesn't do some of this stuff. So, let's see, back in August, his peep sight fell out of his bow.
Yeah, he had a lot going on. He was asking how to start the side in, and we went through all that with him.
Yeah, so we're not going to cover that, and serving, that's best done with the video. But one question he did ask is, can you guys explain what brace height is and what brace should a beginner use or have versus a person who shoots a lot? And then also, what brace height do we personally use and why? So I guess we'll start with what brace height a beginner should use.
Well, first he's asking, what is brace height?
Oh, right. Yeah.
What's the definition of brace height? And that's just simply the distance from your string, your shooting string, to the throat of the grip, which should be in line with your burger hole underneath. So it's in relation to your burger hole, really, but you measure it from the throat of your grip back to your shooting string. So it's that air gap between that handle to your string where you knock your arrow. That's brace height.
Yeah.
And that is, of course, when the bow is just sitting there static, not drawn back.
Yeah, we call that at brace. The bow's at brace that way. So that's the description of what brace height is, and then what a beginner should be shooting. And I don't think there's not necessarily a hard and fast rule that every beginner should have this much brace. There's a lot of different factors to determine that. So one of them is size or draw length. So it's like the size of the person. Somebody with a really short draw length, a kid, shorter draw length, woman, or youth bow, can get away with having I shouldn't say get away with. Them having a shorter brace height bow is going to be equivalent to somebody like Caleb or I having a longer brace height bow, for a couple of reasons. One's like, if you get a super short brace, if you don't have, you can see how close the string is getting to your wrist. So if you have like really big hands, it's going to put your wrist farther back, closer to the string. If you have super tiny hands, then it's your wrist, your hand is going to be farther away from that string. So that's definitely something that affects it, something to think about. And then just another thing I was thinking about too is Well, hand position, regardless of brace, how you hold the bow, whether or not you're double jointed, can play a part in that too. Because if your elbow is double jointed, and I think we see it more in women, don't you think so?
Yeah, they're naturally more
Flexible.
Yeah, and usually they're more double jointed. You could see it kind of in their knees and elbows a little bit. It's just the range of motion is different. Men are
Yep.
a lot more blocky and mechanical, and women move more freely than men. So
Yeah, if you got somebody that's double jointed and they're really posting that front bow arm up, it's going to stick it out. If you have a really short brace height, you might end up with some arm slap, which sucks.
yeah, which there, I mean, so kind of explain what's happening there is the shorter your brace height is, the closer that string is to the grip of the bow, which also means it's closer to your hand and your wrist. So Brandon mentioned that guys with shorter draw length, it doesn't affect them as much. It's all relative. It's relative to your draw length and your bow setup. But reason being is this is that also is going to determine how long the arrow is on the string for the power stroke while you're shooting. So let's say you got a 32-inch draw guy, ridiculously long arms. He draws that back, lets her rip. That string is traveling, flying forward for that entire 32-inch draw length deal before that arrow comes off the string. Okay, then you got a 25-inch draw guy. Well, your power stroke is way shorter. You just dropped 7 inches off of that deal, so your arrow comes off the string much sooner than that 32-inch draw guy. Now, the reason brace height makes a difference is you take that same thing, then you plug in a brace height, and you have, let's say, a 5-inch brace height versus, let's say, an old Matthews 8-inch brace height or target bow. Well, you take that 32-inch draw guy and you give him the 8-inch brace height bow, that arrow is going to come off the string 3 inches before it would on a 5-inch brace height bow. It's coming to that spot where it's coming at rest, where the string's going to stop moving, hit your string stop, and your arrow's coming off the string. Okay, then you have the 5-inch brace height. Your string is still moving forward. It goes past the point where that 8-inch brace height would be, and it's still moving forward till it hits that 5-inch brace height, hits a string stop, and it's off. Okay, so that's critical because it can leave room for a lot more error. If you have an extra inch or 2 inches of where that arrow, or there's allowed to be torque or something, you can move your hand because the human body is always reacting, and it moves without you even knowing it. You're flinching, you're gripping your bow on the release. It's that much more time on a short brace height
To induce torque.
yeah, to induce torque or drop your hand too soon or whatever, and have that little catastrophe happen. That's why everyone says, the short brace height bow is so touchy. Well, okay, 32-inch draw length guy, 7-inch brace height. I mean, we'll say 25 inches of stroke, even though that's not it, because you're measuring draw length is a separate measure. But we'll just say 25 inches of stroke. Then you have a 25-inch draw length guy with a 6-inch brace height, right?
Yeah.
You're dropping off. Your stroke is so much shorter, even though it's a shorter brace height. Your total stroke is so much shorter than the long draw guy.
You're looking at time on the string.
Yep.
That's what you're looking at. But it's funny because I've been a lot of archery talk. If whoever's on there, it's good and bad, right? You can learn a lot of stuff on there, but there's some stuff that goes on there. It's like, really, people, this is what you really think. So you take it with a grain of salt for whoever's on archery talk. But I've been this whole brace height thing. It's this question we got is months old, and we're finally answering it. But it's funny because right now Archery Talk is like blowing up with this brace height thing, and so people are now saying like, oh, that's old school thing in the past. You know, brace height used to make a difference when bows were slower because the string is coming forward slower, right? Not as fast as today's high speed compounds, blah, 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 right? So, so back in the day when they were slower, it's like slow-mo, strings coming forward, ton of time to torque it, right? So they're saying now bows are so fast that it's a non-issue, or that we're taking torque out of the bow, you know, via flex guards or, you know, whatever system the bow has to fix that, or to fight torque, I should say. It doesn't fix torque, it fights it. That they're saying like it's fractions of seconds, and it's true. These are like tiny, tiny fractions of a second that the arrow's on the string. And so a lot of people are saying, well, that's a non-issue then, right? In that tiny fraction of a second, it's not going to make a difference. I don't agree with that.
I think it's a crock.
Yeah,
You're going to have to get a bow that shoots 700 foot a second for that not to matter, because we've been shooting doing a lot of back tension type shooting, and really, really trying to go through our shot process controlled, and in the past couple years. And the whole thing, especially on the mental side, getting out of that, what's called target panic and things like that. Well, we know you can listen to any professional archer or coach. They'll tell you that before that trigger is even engaged or fired, most people's mind is already in the next step, and you're already doing a knee-jerk reaction and torquing your bow, dropping your bow arm. Basically, like Joel Turner would call it, bracing for impact.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because there's this reaction. So those fractions of a second, your mind reacts much faster than that. It's already happening.
But, I mean, to that point, yeah, so fractions of a second, because bows are so fast right now, tiny moves are now amplified by the speed, where before, bows are more forgiving to tuning nowadays. We have more ways to tune, definitely more tunable, better, stronger risers, right? All these different systems that we have, which is awesome for tuning. But there also, it doesn't matter how you look at it or how forgiving your bow is. The faster you're shooting an arrow, the more every little mistake or input into is magnified.
Oh yeah.
You know, to the output side. So it's, you know, there's some people out there like brace is a non-issue. Well, they're way better shooters than me, and there's no doubt about that. There's guys that can pick up a 5-inch brace height bow, a Matthews Wake or whatever, you know, new PSEs, and shoot it better than I can shoot my 7-inch brace height bow all day long. But
yeah, for sure.
That's, you know,
and that's the problem, is all this is put out there. Like, you know, the guys that are putting this out there, let's face it, everybody's a pro when it comes to typing stuff in on the keyboard, right? Keyboard warriors. So of course they're all going to say, "Oh yeah, I can shoot a 5-inch brace height."
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course everybody can do a dime-sized group at 150 yards with 40 arrows.
Yeah, and I guess where I'm at too is, for us and most of our listeners, I'm sure probably all, you know, a good 90% of our listeners right now are people that follow us. They're all hunters anyway.
Yeah.
Like, if you're just shooting, what doesn't matter if you're just shooting for hunting or target. If you're shooting for target, look at all the pros. Target archers.
They're shooting 8-inch brace.
Yeah. 7 and 8-inch brace bows. Okay, so there's that argument. And then if you look at hunting, just from a hunting standpoint, unless you're hunting in short sleeves year round, you know, you may not notice it, but you put gloves on, it gets cold, you start layering up. I don't care if you have an arm guard on or not. That single factor right there, stuff getting in the way of the string path off of your forearm, is an issue. And a little bit longer brace will make that bow more forgiving to your arm placement, arm torque, It may not make it more forgiving to shoot for somebody, like as far as tuning and accuracy. Maybe more forgiving just the way you hold it, you know? So,
And so we'll need to look at it as the only one thing that short or brace height gives us is speed, right?
Yeah.
That's it. It gives you a longer power stroke, thereby giving you more speed. So,
Yeah.
as a reference, a 6-inch brace height bow on the exact same platform. Let's take two 32-inch model bows, exact same models, which a lot of companies do this. They'll make a 6-inch brace height and
Yeah.
a 7-inch brace height. The 6-inch is going to be 10 feet per second faster.
yep.
That no matter which way you slice it, that's just it. So you're gaining speed out of a 6-inch brace height bow. Okay, so that's good. I mean, speed's great. A 6-inch brace height bow nowadays, yes, is much better to handle than a 6-inch brace height bow. Let's say 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because limb platforms, limb pockets, cam systems, angled torque rod, cable rods, all that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're way beyond what we used to be. So they are way easier to handle. However, we're also now making 7-inch brace height bows that are shooting in the 340s.
Yeah, dude, look at my Denali is 34-inch axle, 7 inches of brace, and I'm at 345.
That's fast.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, so the argument still, we can still say when we're recommending, when Brandon and I are fitting customers or looking at what somebody wants or needs or what they're going to do for hunting, first thing we ask is draw length, and if they don't know it, we're going to go ahead and check them and fit them. And then we're going to look at bow models that will fit their stature. And this is important because, yes, the 25, 26, 27, even 28-inch draw length, yeah, absolutely. You are going to be able to shoot a 6-inch brace height bow just
like
as
Isaiah.
good. Yeah, like a buddy Isaiah. He's only 27-inch draw length, so we get him in a shorter brace height bow that does a couple things. It gives him more power stroke, so he picks up speed because he gets a major penalty for being a 27-inch little T-Rex arms. So we get him back some speed by going with a shorter brace, and he does not lose handling because his power stroke is shorter anyways. We get a guy that's over 28 and a half inch draw length, 29 on up, man, unless they know exactly what they want and they're seasoned, we'll just say a beginner, right? We're going to put them in a 7-inch brace height bow all day just for handling purposes. And because of the fact that if you're stroking that long of a draw length, I mean, do you really need to chase speed that much?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, for us, it's pretty easy. 10 feet per second or a more forgiving shooting platform, regardless of what anybody else tells you. Like, I'm going to take one that I can fudge a little bit on my form, wearing heavy clothes when I'm freezing my butt off in the woods to make a 80-yard shot on a muley buck out there so I can smoke him. That's bottom line for us.
right.
So,
And, and I think, we mentioned earlier, the like target shooters, they're shooting anywhere from a 7-inch, and even 7 is going to be on the shorter side for true dedicated target rigs. But they're going up, 8.5-inch brace height on all these models. I think we can take, and more people are starting to see this, but we can take a lot from the target world. They are the pinnacle of archery. What they do, and a lot of people may, all they do is stand there and just shoot a dot at 20 yards and punch paper and this and that. And okay, let's say that, but I would challenge anybody, any hunter out there to step on the line and toe the line with them. These guys shoot for a living. It's what they do. And if we can, they are literally the most accurate shooters in the world. Hunters are not. Target shooters are. It's just, some people may take offense to that, but that's just the way it goes. They know their equipment better than anybody else. So why can we not take something from them and learn, and adapt it to hunting?
Yep.
And brace height is just one of those things. There's a million other things we could talk about, but brace height,
Yeah.
and then in relation to a longer axle bow, but it'll be a different deal. So let's see, was that
That was it.
all for him?
Yep.
So, yep.
So
What do
we're
we got
looking.
next?
This is off of Instagram. Matt McNabb.
Which we built a set of strings for him.
Yeah.
He's down in Texas,
Yeah. So
San Antonio, I think.
yeah, a lot of thanks for listening and sending questions. By the way, a lot of other questions we had on his setup, but one big thing he was asking about, he's having some problem. Actually, just we were talking about serving in a peep. So, like if your peep is slightly offset, you have the exact height that you want, but it's it's not coming straight back.
So it's twisted whenever you pull it back.
Yeah, yep. Or you get the other thing is if you get a set of strings that you get a slight quarter turn of the peep every single time. So we'll talk about that one first. If you have a set of strings that your peep rotates every time you draw it, if it's the same rotation all the way back every time, well, at least you're in luck. You can set your D loop. Your D loop does not have to be straight back. You tune your D loop to bring your peep to where it needs to be. So as long as it's consistent, you're okay. Just make sure your D loop, wherever it could be pointing off, to the left of your string instead of straight back at a 90.
Or if you have access to a press,
Throw a twist in there.
yeah, you can undo that string loop and give it a half turn over. Or if you're coming from the bottom, I think one turn equals about a quarter turned up to your peep.
Yeah, about
right
depending
around
on the
there.
length of your string.
Yeah, depending on how long your string is,
Yeah.
but
If it's consistent, you're good though.
right.
So if you're slightly off, there's a couple things you can do. If say it's just sitting to the left a little bit, your peep for a right-handed shooter, couple things you can do to straighten that out or to keep it sitting straight to have a really good sight picture is we serve a couple different ways. We'll use a constrictor knot. It's kind of like a clove hitch to tie around the body of the peep. Now, honestly, that's all you need to hold in a peep, but just look that up. Type in constrictor knot. You can look it up. It's just a self-locking clove hitch, basically, and that holds the peep in place. Now, if you're still getting turn, Caleb and I like to do like tunable. Basically, they're tied in knock points almost, but a set of serving above and below that peep, and to where you can slide that whole thing. Now, it takes some effort, but you tie in one, and again, it was more for a video, but you tie in one set of this serving below. You don't run it up the side of the string and around the peep and then keep it continuous. It's a separate one. Right where that string kind of is naturally splits, don't put a ton of pressure on the peep. And then you tie one above, and then you can use those two knots to actually slightly turn that peep. So if you look at it, if you're looking at the bottom set of serving, the bottom knot, right where it comes together, or starts to split rather, if I push that knot up to where it starts tightening that Y, basically, it's bringing that Y together up towards the peep, it's going to force that string, the peep, to slightly rotate. Because anytime you push up or down on the string, it's going to rotate with a natural twist of the string. So you can do that from the top. Also, push the knot down to rotate the peep over to the left. So basically, you've made yourself a tunable peep. So it's pretty cool. The other thing is if it's like slightly turned, to the left, if you serve real tight, going with the twists of the string, and you just need it to turn to the right, you can serve it down tight, lock it in, put a little pressure on that peep, serve up the leg of the string around the peep, wrap it around the peep, and then wrap it tight again on the uphill side.
On the opposite leg.
Yep, on the opposite leg, and then wrap it tight, keep going with the twist of the string, and lock it in place there. Really tight serving. You can actually get, I don't know, 1/8 of a rotation turn of your peep to where it sets it perfectly straight. So,
Yep.
let me look at his thing here.
Another trick I'd seen too, and I think it was Dudley did this. If he knows his peep height, of course, this is for like a total setup. This
Yeah.
You got to have a bow press and all that. He marks it. He actually puts the peep in facing straight forward, straight back before he even puts his D loop on,
Yeah.
and then ties,
Yep.
and then so everything's lined up, and then he lines the string up to where it's perfectly straight back, and then installs the D loop, and everything's lined
Yep.
up, and it's just right
Yep.
on the money every time.
Yeah, and I've actually started doing that too. And I think that brings up another good point, even though it's not peep related, is we, Caleb and I pretty much tied in knock sets, served in knock sets every time now. So if you're doing an initial setup, a lot of people, they'll get the bow leveled, get your rest where it needs to be, identify where your knocking point needs to be, and then tie on your D loop, right, to set your top knocking point. Well, then when you put your peep in, that D loop spins all the way around, right?
Yeah.
So if you set your, and this isn't what Matt asked about, but if you set your knocking point with a tight end knock set, and we always do one above and below, but okay, you set one above to set your knock point. We set one below to keep from having any knock pinch in case there's any separation in the center serve, which happens, but no big deal. Set one above, then you have your knocking point set, then measure from there, put your peep in to the height that you need, if you know it, if you'd measured it beforehand, and set your peep in, and then tie your D loop on after that. You already have your knocking point set. So.
Yeah, that way everything's facing straight back.
Yep. The other benefit of a tight end knock set, besides initial setup like that, is say you do cut a D loop in the field, whatever, out on a hunt, you'll still have your knocking point set. So it's a reference. All you have to do is tie a D loop around that, around your 2 knocking points, and you're good to go. You know that your knocking point height hasn't changed, so it's not going to change your high-low tune or point of impact.
Right, and that does happen. I had a release that me and Brandon and Braden were at a 3D shoot it was between Laramie and Cheyenne. It was in Wyoming. And it was a really long shoot. And like halfway through, I had a release that would wear on it's a thumb trigger that would wear on my D-loop. And I was like 3/4 draw, and that D-loop, it cut right through that D-loop. And I punched myself in the face.
Freaking almost knocked him out. It was awesome.
Oh, it was a brutal hit. 72-pound bow, and so we sat down right there and we put another D loop on. But it does happen. Now I haven't had that issue since. I've switched releases. It was a machining issue on the hook.
But it happens.
But it does happen. Yeah.
Or if you have a new person tie your D loop on, and the knot pulls through and you punch yourself in the face.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll claim that one. I've done that one before, back in the day.
Yeah.
I totally screwed that up. But, or you could just be like Braden and spike your bow down the mountain, down the rocks, and just cut everything there is on it.
Yeah.
So. But anyways, what else did Matt have on there?
Let me see. Well, I open my phone back up here.
Doesn't like you.
Let's see. D-loop, straighten it out. Yeah, I think that's the big tricks. Just tying in a tunable peep like we talked about, constrictor knot around the body of the peep, and then
Basically knocking points above.
Yeah,
and below.
above and below. It's
Tight end.
it's killer. It's the only way to tighten a peep anymore, pretty much. And then, yeah, I think that was it with the peep. The one thing, if you get constant, one thing to note is if you try all these things and your peep, it's just all over the place. It's not. It's probably not because of something you did. It's probably just it's the string's fault. So when the string builder, if they make a string that has, if the end serving on the top cam is put on at 1 tension, say 12 pounds of tension, and the end serving on the bottom cam is put down at 10 pounds of tension on the jig spool, then you're going to have rotation because it's fighting against the twist. It's different pressure, top and bottom of the string. And that doesn't happen as much as if you have a center serving that's put on way too tight, because people get afraid that it's going to separate, when they're building strings, which sucks when it happens, but it's not the end of the world. If it's on too tight, that center serve will, it'll cause it to rotate every time you draw the bow because it's locked. That center serving so strong, it's locked so hard against, torquing the twist, the natural twist of the string. It's going to cause the peep to rotate when you're coming back to full draw. So if you got a new set of strings or new bow, whatever, factory set of strings that you're just having problems like that, and you're like, these are new strings, whatever it is, look at that. Have somebody redo just your center serving. And a lot of times that will fix your peep rotation problem. You don't need to drop 120, 150, $200 on a new set of threads just because your peep's rotating.
Yeah.
So,
or it might even be the point where you're going to have to, maybe they weren't pre-stretched, and you're going to have to shoot in until your strings stretch throughout their, get used up what they're going to do and work those twists through the serving and then let them settle out.
yeah, I guess that was I was assuming they were already shot in, but yeah. Okay, I think that's it. What else do we got?
That's what Matt had. Let's see. Cross-driven bow hunter on Instagram. So he's got a lot going on here.
A lot of questions.
Jeremy Johnson is his name. He's a cross-driven bow hunter. So he's wanting to get set up and rolling to do work on his own. He's got wife and kids that he's getting into shooting, which is pretty cool. He's asking about strings, and then he said he wants to hear some topics because it's coming down to where our cost issue really, which is, that happens for a lot of people is, and sometimes, and you got 4 or 5 people in the household. You can't just bring every one of their bows to the pro shop and say, have at it. So,
Or if you're like Caleb and you have like 6 bows
well,
for yourself.
Whatever. That's why I had to learn to work on them. Couldn't afford to anymore. But so definitely commend him for that, getting his family rolling and wanting to learn more. Now he's got a ton of questions on here. Let's see. I'll list them all out, then we'll just pick a couple, and then we'll go with a couple. See, he wants to know process of a bow setup, for instance, stuff like how to fine-tune draw length by twisting cables and strings, and what effect that has on the entire setup.
Yeah, we can do that pretty.
Yep. The build process of a bow beginning to end. Product reviews on different sites that we've used, pros and cons, and then the same for rest, stabilizers, releases. And then he's wanting to know also about arrow tuning. Do we bare shaft tune or just paper tune? Is it fully built arrows or do we walk back tune? So on and so forth. So quite a few things going on there.
Yeah, I'm gonna look back at our other episodes because I think we covered basic bow setup and some tuning on a couple. That might have been with Phil though when we were doing alpha.
Yeah, I mean we can
episodes,
touch on
but-
this stuff, but
Yeah, we really should just do a video. And you know what we might do? It was Jeremy, right? Mm-hmm. Jeremy that would probably be, so if we look back at the alpha bow hunting podcast, Phil Mendoza's, when we were doing the Tech Talk, the text segments, we covered all of that stuff in there. And I'm not trying to just dump it off right now, but we do have podcasts on that. I'll look back at our other ones here for our own DNA podcast to see if we covered any of that. But we can talk about, for sure, I think we should talk about, twisting, fine-tuning draw length.
Yeah. Twisting cables or
Yep.
string.
Yep. So,
He's probably just trying to find his little happy place.
yeah.
A lot of people, I mean, bows come out, or at least they're listed as, you get by half-inch increments draw length, 28 and a half, 29, 29 and a half, so on and so forth. Now, realistically, when you draw those back, they're not always right on the money. It depends on manufacturer or whatever. But let's say that from shooting for X amount of years that you are 28 and 3/4 or 28 and 7/8 draw length. Well, your only choice is a 28 and a half inch mod or a 29-inch mod, and then you're dropping back to it.
Yeah.
So this is what he's talking about, is how does he hit that magical 1/8 inch number to where he knows that he's fully engaged, he's on his perfect anchor point, and his front arm is right on the money.
Yeah. And I think the key is also without totally changing the feel, draw cycle characteristics, the holding weight and everything of your bow, or as little effect to all that stuff as possible.
Right.
So basic stuff. A bow has different cam systems, right? Hybrid will have a shooting string, a split bus cable, that'll be your Y cable, it's a split bus, and then a control cable. Binary cam will have 2 control cables and a shooting string. Single cams, you just have 1 split bus and then a single long string, but that does dual duty. But anyway, if we talk about, so we're just going to say twisting and untwisting of cables. When we say that, or string, so we'll call them cables and string. When we say string, that means the shooting string.
Right.
That's where your knock is tied to, knocking point is tied on D-loop, all that stuff. That's string, shooting string. Cables, doesn't matter if it's a hybrid or a binary. We'll just call them cables, even though on a hybrid they're different. Now, whenever we're tuning, we always go to the take-up side of that cam/cable.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means, the take-up side of the cam is when that cam rotates around towards the back, you're going to go to this cable that is being taken up or shortened. The track is picking up cable.
Right.
So that's where we're going to do our tuning. And that is the take-up side is always going to be, if you're looking at the side of the bow, is the take-up side of the cables are always going to be towards the front of the bow, the face of the bow, not towards
your limb pockets, not
towards the limb
shooter.
pockets. Yeah. The take-up side of everything is going to be towards the shooter, towards the shooting string. So remember that. It's kind of an easy way to think about it. And if you just look at it and just
Let outs.
all right, I'm sorry, let out is going to be, take up sides on the let out is going to be towards the shooter.
Yep.
And you can, if you forget, just look at your bow, slightly pull tension on the string and see how the cam's going to rotate, and you can watch it either picking up cable, the take-up side, or letting it out. So we're going to tune on the take-up side. So how does that affect draw length? So anytime we twist up cables, when we say twist up, that means going with the twist in the string, whether it's a right hand or left hand twist, depending on the string builder. You're in effect shortening your cable, the overall length, because you're
putting extra twists into it and shortening up the overall length.
Yep. So what that's going to do is rock your cam forward. That's called advancing the cam. It's going to rock your cam in a starting position at brace towards the limb pocket. And anytime you twist up cables, a couple things are going to happen. One, you'll advance your cam, which makes your draw weight go up. And when your draw weight goes up, if you leave your draw stops set at the exact same place, if they're sliding one or if it's a fixed one, it's going to stay in the same spot anyway. Your draw length is going to get longer.
Yep. You push that cam forward, so now it's going to have to roll farther backward to hit that same spot.
Yep. So just remember, twisting up cables on the take-up side, draw weight goes up, draw length goes up, valley gets bigger.
Right.
So if you like the feel of your valley, but you have low peak draw weight, you need to get it up. You're going to twist up your cables to get your peak draw weight up, but then it's going to make your valley longer.
Slightly, yeah.
Slightly longer. It's going to make your draw length longer. Then you can slide your stops back into right where you want it. So if you want to tweak just for a little bit more length, twist up your cables to get draw length.
Yep.
Just remember, you're going to get draw weight with that too. So
yeah, you'll definitely gain draw weight with that. You're going to put more load on the bow. And okay, so let's say the guy still wants to grab 1/8 of an inch, but he doesn't want to pick up draw weight. Well, you can jump over to your shooting string, the string itself, and you can untwist your string.
yeah, you're making that string longer by
It'll
untwisting.
do the same thing, but it's not going to preload your limbs, and so you're not gonna pick up the same draw weight increase. You'll get a little bit, but you'll end up being able to get a 1/16, 1/8 of an inch,
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
without affecting your total feel. Your cables are going to get it done
Faster.
easier, faster, and you'll have more range using your cables. And then you can use your shooting string as like that fine tuning final little.
So we
bump to
always
get
say
there.
like the cables will, if you change their lengths, mess with them, shorten or lengthen, you're gonna get big moves. Now, when I say big, it's not, you're not gonna shoot up 10 pounds, but
it's all relative, yeah.
yeah, bigger effect. When you mess with your shooting strings, to smaller effect. So.
Yep.
And so you want to really fine tune something, right? Get your peak draw way up. You can twist the heck out of your cables, for instance. Get your peak draw weight up, your draw length. Say you like the peak weight there, but you want to shorten your draw length a tiny bit, then twist up your string.
Right.
So that's actually going to counter effect the twists that you put in the cables. It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but it's going to do it to a smaller effect. So it's going to bring, what that's going to do is you can advance your cams. You can preload the system, advance your cams with your cables being twisted up, but then bring your draw length back in check and peak draw weight a little bit by twisting up your shooting string also.
Right. Yep. So all that said, the same will go in reverse. You want to shorten your draw length, untwist your cables, and or twist up your shooting string. Now, with all that said, it is always better to put twists into instead of taking twists out. Unless you have a string or cable that already has an excess amount of twist in it, you always want to try and hold a certain twist rate in your strings and not go below it, because then your bundles start to loosen up.
Yep.
So
they're settled into a certain twist rate from the builder.
right. So don't just go in there thinking, well, I'm gonna do everything on my shooting string and untwist it to get that draw length right. you're going to end up making that shooting string way too loose, and you're going to lose a lot of things, performance being one, peep movement being one, stability, all kinds of stuff. So that's the general rules. Now, he also asked, what effect does changing your draw length have? Using your strings and cables, what effect does it have on your total setup? We touched a couple of that. You twist up your cables, your draw weight is going to go up, your valley is going to change, get a little bit longer, so your let off is going to be different, your holding weight may be different. The power stroke is going to feel slightly different. You're going to put more preload on your limbs, so you're going to have a little more snap out of it. You untwist your cables. The total effect is, well, you're gonna loosen some of that preload that you have on your limbs, so you're gonna lose a little bit of snap. And this is all small stuff, but this is stuff that if you shoot a lot, you'll feel these things. You'll feel the difference for sure. If you lose a little bit of preload, if you untwist and kind of drop that tension there, your back wall is going to feel different, especially if you're shooting cable stops. It's going to get more mushy on the back, a little more spongy.
The draw cycle will get smoother though.
Right. Draw cycle itself, yep. Well, your back wall is going to feel different. There's a bunch of different things.
You can take one cam system, and just by untwisting cables and string and stuff, you can make it feel harsh on the draw, but have the most speed out of it you want at your exact draw length, or you can slow the cams down, rock them back a little bit, change the starting position of the cam, and have a super smooth draw cycle, exact same bow and cam, and still hit your draw length.
Right.
So, and everything in between. That's what's fun about it. That's why we like the tuning stuff.
Yeah, so generally we like to say, as a general rule, if you need to go up to that mid, let's say in between that half-inch increment, go with the shorter draw setting on your bow, whether it's a draw mod or a post or whatever. Go to the shorter one because they always draw longer than what they advertise anyways. And then twist up from there. You'll maintain that tension throughout your limbs. You have a more solid platform all the way around.
And a perfect example is back to Braden again on his couple of his 80-pound obsessions. This draw length was just not quite there. We wanted to get just a little bit. It was already peaking at 80 pounds, right? We didn't want to get, and this brings up another point. Always do all of your tuning with the limbs totally bottomed out.
Right.
All the way in, not a quarter turn out, all the way in.
Tuning. Your draw length will depend on what poundage you're shooting at, but tuning, yeah.
So do your tuning like that, but then when you're setting your draw length, so we brought Braden's peak weight up to 84, 85 pounds to get a little bit of draw length, and it wasn't quite there, but that's a heavy bow. So then you back the limb bolts out,
right?
Bring it back down to 80 pounds with the backing the limb bolts out. Well, that also gives you draw length. So between the two, we got a 1/8 inch here, a 1/16 inch there. Bam, it's sitting exactly in the draw length that you need. So, don't be afraid you can change the peak weight. People are like, oh, I don't want it to be up at 75 pounds. If I twist up too much, it's way too high. Okay, so maybe set it a 1/2 inch shorter, twist up, and then back the limb bolts out down to 70 pounds to get your exact draw length.
I've done that the past,
you're
pretty much all my new breeds. I sit at a really odd kind of draw length to where
right in between you.
Yeah, and I need to feel that and hit at an exact spot. So I've done that. I've built shorter cables. I've twisted up to where my peak draw weight has gone up pretty good. Actually, I didn't twist up. I built custom length cables, but it's the same type of thing going on. So what I did from there is my peak draw weight was up, and I was still a little too short on the draw length. So I backed my limb bolts out back down to like that 71, 72 pound range, and bam, my draw length fits me perfect. Now, yes, my limbs are not slammed, so they're not under the exact full tension that you can get when you can get more tension on if you're slammed to the bottom of your limb bolts, generally a little more efficient. But for me, it was more important. I was still hitting my peak draw weight, and I'm getting that exact draw length I want. So
Yep.
it's a combination of tiller bolts and cable links to change it. So the big things you need to know in doing this is every time you twist cables, they need to be even, your top and bottom cam, or you really need to recheck your timing and sync after you're done with all this. That's huge. That's one major effect with it. And the other, if you're messing with your tiller bolts, doing your weight, they need to be dead nuts even, backed out or turned in. So that'll affect your cam position, knock
Cam
point, the
timing,
whole
yeah.
whole deal. So those are the big things right there.
Yeah, that's basic stuff. You can twist, you can shorten yoke legs on a hybrid to squat that top limb. It's gonna advance the cam also. So we're talking tuning now, not just draw length. But if you're looking at you don't want to put any more twists in that top cam take up, then you can twist both yokes if you're
Right.
happy with your left right or lateral impact stuff, fishtailing, and squat that. That'll squat that limb by shortening that, which will allow the cam to advance. Just remember, if you do that, you need to recheck your sync on between top and bottom cams also. So
it'll change your high-low. So
yeah, a couple different ways to get that. So what's next?
oh, let's see. What if okay, bow build beginning and end. That'll have to be a different deal, I believe.
Yeah, and I'm telling you,
we will do that.
Go to Alpha Bow Hunting's Championship Bow Hunting Podcast, Phil's podcast, and look through all the DNA tech tips.
We'll redo one because we're doing a couple different setups this year, but we'll redo one where we kind of walk through the deal. So stay tuned for that. Let's see, product reviews. He's asking for pros and cons of items we use, such as rests, stabilizers, release, sights. So let's pick one of those right now.
Yeah, I think we should maybe just do a product review. We need to go through our full setups, a different podcast. Full setups, what we've been playing with this off season,
Yeah.
and what we're going to be running this season, because we talked a little bit about that in a previous one, but Caleb and I are always changing stuff.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, might order a new stabilizer soon. Anyway, so yeah, dude, that one, I think we should do another one.
All right, we'll cover that some other time, but he's
we're-
asking arrow tuning. We'll just cover that real quick. Do we bare shaft tune or just paper tune with a fully built arrow? And do we walk back tune arch setups?
So yes,
All of the above.
kind of depends on the day or the mood we're in. What's interesting is we talk, people that follow us know we do a lot and have done a ton of bare shaft tuning, long range bare shaft tuning too, and use that as our benchmark. And it's true that if you bare shaft tune, if you're consistent enough as a shooter to be able to do that, that's the other thing. You can't just bare shaft tune. If you're not a super consistent shooter, it's super hard to do that. Pretty much you can screw on any broadhead and shoot it, and you're going to be right in there if you got bare
Pretty good,
shafts.
Yeah.
But I think lately, it's Caleb and I were just talking earlier today, or maybe yesterday, that do you shoot bare shafts at an animal?
Never.
Never.
Now, yeah, so we've kind of, I don't know, a year ago we were 100%, it was bare shaft or nothing. 2 years ago, even, bare shaft or nothing. And literally, we'd spend a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks just shooting until we could get a bare shaft tune. Go in and bump a rest, go in and shim a cam, go in and twist a yoke, go in and do this. Well, then if you go out shooting and you're tired and your form's all jacked up, then your bare shaft is all over the place, but you're going, oh man, it's because I need to change this, and you're changing this. It's this ridiculous rabbit hole that only should be done when you're in good shooting form and shape.
Yeah.
and you're confident with your setup.
That's a good point.
And then from there, yeah, go for it. Because when we do our initial bow setups, we have our arrows we choose kind of based on what we want for an all-in finished type of speed and momentum, based on the bow we're going to be shooting. So the faster the bow, like let's say next year, Brandon and I both get a bow that's 10 feet per second faster, 20 feet per second faster, we're going to automatically go, okay, I want an arrow that's another 20, 30 grains heavier, because we want to get to that certain finish speed for 1, broadhead control, 2, quiet flight, 3, tunability. So we always base off of that first, and then of course we'll tune and tweak if we need to change some arrow components. Yeah, we're definitely going to do that. So initially we'll set up our bow, check our sync, check our timing, set our rest to factory center shot, whatever specified by the manufacturer, set it to 90 coming off the string, and then we're going to grab our bare shafts and have at it. That's usually the way we start, right? We have our fletched and our bare shaft. And then we'll just go from there, and we start shooting, and we do our bare shaft initially at a close range, 10 yards, and we shoot it. And usually if you've chosen the correct shaft to match your draw length, your draw weight, speed of the bow, type of the cam, this and that, and components on the front, I can't say we've been lucky enough, because
We've done
not
it
luck
enough.
at all. We've done it a couple
We know
thousand
where
times.
it's supposed to be.
Usually it's either a couple twists in a yoke, or we may have to shim a cam, but we'll pop that in, and boom, within 20 minutes, half an hour, we're shooting bare shaft at 10 yards and smacking. So that's a beautiful thing. It makes you feel real good. Now, if not, then if no matter what we do with our rest or our yoke or whatever, we can't get bare shaft, then you're going to look for contact first. Is your rest dropping quick enough? Is something hitting or contacting?
Rest timing, whether it's a cable driven
Right.
or limb driven. People don't think limb driven rest can be timed. Big time, man. That's I would say a limb driven rest is one of the biggest overlooked thing
Yeah.
for timing on that launcher arm.
To get good arrow flight.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's always a high low. People,
Yep.
oh, my cams are timed, sync, knock point, everything is perfect. But yeah.
Yep. So we'll go there, and then we can start looking at different tip weights, whatever, to see how that arrow is going to react. Or we'll be spinning knocks and knocking different index on your knock and do that. So yes, we do tune our arrows. Then usually from there, we rarely shoot through paper anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of a benchmark here and there just to get an
It's
idea of what it
only
looks like.
It's a starting point.
Yeah.
You do it the same as we do our bare shaft. Like, we do our full setup and we immediately shoot a bare shaft. You can do your full setup and shoot through paper your first shot.
Yep.
See what it does.
Yep.
You got a good tear, then you go from there with your arrows. From there, if you don't have a good tear, well, you can change point weights, look for contact on your rest timing, things like that. From there, we go and we do a walk back. From there, at least I do. I've done a walk back to where I shoot that vertical line at close range, adjust my sights, and this is, of course, with fletched shafts. And then I go back to a farther distance, adjust my rest, repeat the process till I'm splitting that hanging vertical line.
Yeah, both distances with no other moves.
And usually you can grab your bare shaft again and check it and shoot it, and usually it's pretty dang good from there.
Yeah. I say from there, I think after the walk back tune, what we started to do a lot more now is just group tuning.
Yep. And knock indexing.
Yep. It's just
huge, knock indexing.
if you spine align your arrows, or if some manufacturers say they do for you, that's great. we don't do that. I'm not saying you don't have to do that or it's not an awesome step. One, I just don't have the patience or the time to do it, to spine index.
Right.
But if you group tune after you've done your initial setup, so group tune meaning I'm just gonna go out and shoot a group with my finished arrows, and shoot a group. If you get one outlier, then you knock index that one, which means slightly turn it so the cock vein is, is not perfectly straight up and down, slightly turned, and then shoot the whole group again. See if it brings it into the group.
Yeah.
If it does, bam, you just keep shooting groups. And then when you have those flyers, once you get everything hitting super tight group just by knocking indexing, that's pretty much it, man. After you've done the initial walk back tune, so basic setup, shoot a couple bear shafts, see where it goes, do some small tweaks there to get you in there, walk back tune, which sets true center shot, and then group tune with knock indexing.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Done deal. And we've gone to where we're really looking for, as time goes on, we're looking for a better control with our veins, our fletching configuration. So we don't want to leave it to chance that, oh yeah, I got bear shaft, so I can have any type of fletching on there. Nope. We will shoot different 3 fletch configurations. Like I actually have a 3 fletch fletched up and a 4 fletch fletched up on the same shaft. So that'll be one thing I do also, get my tune, see which one flies better. Now, if you don't have the luxury of buying like, oh yeah, I fletched up all these and all those and I got a dozen here and a dozen there. Not everybody can do that, I understand. If you go, let's say with the 3 fletch, one of the big things that I like to tell people is I personally like to make all my fletching the same color. And for the biggest reason is that when I go in and I have those odd flyers and I need to knock tune, I can now turn that knock, and all my colors of fletching are the same, but now I got a new cock vein pointing up or whichever way your rest needs it. And then you don't have like that one orange one pointing the wrong way now, and then in a clutch situation, you're like, oh yeah, this one's supposed to go up, and you index it wrong.
And you know what? If people worry about not having a different colored cock vein just for quick hunting situations, which I totally get. So once you index them, then just color that one with mark the top of the vein with a permanent marker or something.
Yeah, a little
so you
Sharpie.
can see it. You know what I mean?
Or if you're numbering your arrows, you can put it right on that vein that you've tuned to now, and it's a done deal. But that's one reason why I run all the same colors. On a 3 fletch, I now have 3 knocking options to knock and index tune every single one of my arrows. On a 4 fletch, it's just 90 degrees, so I have 4 options to knock tune, and I have massive control. So if you walk back tune and group tune with, let's say, that longer 4 fletch, you're probably right in the money. Now that doesn't mean you're gonna won't have odd flyers, because sometimes you get a lemon, period. That's just the way arrows go. It's, shafts are produced at literally millions and millions and millions of shafts. One of them may not have the tolerances that you need. Put that one as your grouse arrow, your small game arrow, whatever. Just identify it and rely on your fletching setup to steer if you do all this stuff properly.
And go back and our podcast number 4, our DNA podcast number 4 is an arrow one, so it'll have some more. You guys hit that again, some more arrow stuff, and we have a tuning one. I think it was number 3 also. So basic setup and tuning, and just looking back at those. So
cool.
If this time of year people are starting to get new setups again, so kind of review those for sure.
Yep.
What else? I think that's about it for that, huh?
Yeah.
It looks like we've been pretty long-winded, so.
I think on the next, we'll do one here coming up pretty quick. Might just record here shortly.
Yeah.
and we will talk about the latest with Dirty North, what we're doing coming up, and a couple other announcements, and kind of just what we stepped into at the end of this last year and what we got going on for this year.
Yeah.
Just catch up a little bit.
Yep. All right.
That's it for now. Thanks for listening.
Yep. As always, submit more questions or feedback. We love it.
Thanks for listening to the Dirty North Archery Podcast. If you enjoyed this or any other episodes, be sure to subscribe or share with your friends. You can find all our episodes on alphabowhunting.com under the Dirty North Archery tab or on Podbean.
And make sure you go over to Facebook, Instagram, or dirtynortharchery.com to see the latest from Dirty North Archery or get in contact with us. As always, we'd love to hear from you with any questions or comments or ideas for upcoming shows.